Hey everybody, Jacob here from the Formula Drift podcast. We have an awesome deal for you. So if you head over to shopfd.com and use coupon code podcast23, you're going to save 20% on any merch. So anything you can find on that website, use podcast23 at shopfd.com. Save yourself 20%. Hats, shirts, lanyards, whatever. Just use the code. Save yourself some money. So why not? You know, don't stop listening. Wait till the show's done. But then head over, shopfd.com. Use podcast 23. We'll see you guys out there. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone. My name is Jacob Gettins, and we have Dean Kearney. Can I call you Bosco, though? Is that okay?
Bosco's okay, yeah. Bosco's
okay. All right. Is that how you know you're in the inner friends circle, is if you get referred to as Bosco?
Bosco or Ted would be a very Irish thing. I call like all my closer friends Ted. Okay. It's actually great when you're here in the shop and you call out Ted and everyone turns around at the same time. It's great. It's like I have everyone's attention now.
That's fun. It's like working in a kitchen. You yell out chef and like everybody turns around.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. That's funny. Did you watch Bosco as a kid? Like is that where that came from?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the traditional. It's like the Mr. Rogers of Ireland, right?
It was on through the 80s and 90s. I think it ended like late 90s, 96, 97. I think.
Okay. I wasn't. Oh, go ahead.
They would do a comeback every like 5 years. You know, it's Bosco's return. You know, I'm back and do a couple of episodes.
That's funny. I wasn't sure if that was like a you thing or an Ireland thing. I couldn't find any other references other than you.
No, it's an Ireland. Absolutely an Ireland thing.
Absolutely an Ireland thing. All right. Well, it makes me feel a little better. I'm going to wait until I'm called either Ted or Bosco. I usually just get like asshole or something. So
I'll call you Ted next week when I see you.
All right, cool. I thought you were going to get real mad at me when I blocked your way into the entrance in Seattle there. I was like recording the outro to a podcast and you pulled up right behind me.
Get that fuck out of the way.
I was waiting just to get like smoked in the back of the knees and just ride the Viper all the way to the pits. But that's all good. So how's the season been? You've had a kind of a controversial one. I would say self-imposed controversy in some cases with the YouTube thumbnails, but it's been an interesting one.
I think controversy kind of follows me sometimes. I feel like it's like, what did I do in a past life that I don't know about that has stuff coming back to haunt me? But I'd say for the most part, it's been like a mediocre season. The car's been very, very good. It's been the best car I've ever had, and just haven't been able to like convert it like into good results, like, you know. So
yeah, like
I feel good about the program. I feel good about the team, everyone on it, like everything that we're doing. It's just like converting that into like top fours or whatever is just not really been happening.
Well, it's good. It's good the car is kind of in a better spot. I feel like for a while you were kind of doing R&D for the V10 series because like it seemed like every other round there was something weird popping, and they can't be. I know they're not cheap to rebuild. So
yeah, they're expensive, dude. And like we are the only one in drifting like on like the stage of like under the pinnacle of drifting.
Yeah,
is actually trying to run that motor. And we had the motor on lock for about 5 years, but then we started asking more out of it. And then like the judging criteria became a lot more like about sound and impact and throttle input and stuff. Whereas our car's in the sweet spot between like 4,800 and 5,900 like RPM. It's like, it has everything. It has all the torque, all the power, and it's always on tap. But now the judges like want you smashing the rev limiter and be 10 mile an hour shorter on your wheel speed, and like our motor is not happy when it's beating the piss out of rev limiter.
That's interesting. There's always a lot of talk about like doing different things to try and get a better judging decision. Like guys have talked about different liveries or different like wheel colors and like adding stuff to the back end of the car so they look closer. I've never heard anybody like really come out and say, yeah, we bigger engine sound.
Yeah, like we've talked about it. Obviously, I'm not like in depth with the judges, and they're like, they want to see the impact and know that you're fully committed and stuff.
Yeah.
So now everyone's after shortening up their wheel speed and just smashing off the rev limiter, driving around. Oh,
yeah.
Whatever they want, I guess that's the game we have to play, right?
Well, and you've you went twin turbo on it as well because it was NA nitrous for a bit.
So no, I never drove an NA one. Supercharged car from 2011 through to 2017, Arwindale 17. We retired the supercharger setup and then we went to twin turbo, and we've done it like quite a few different iterations of the twin turbo setup on it. But now I feel it's honestly the best it's ever been. Like, you know.
Yeah. Is it like the trade-off of not having blown belts, but like the complications then of turbo? Like I've heard so many guys complain about blown belts on superchargers.
We had the supercharger set up on the car when we made 10 pounds of boost. We never had a belt issue ever. Then from 2015 onwards, we started increasing the boost and asking for more, and ended up in exactly a Matt Fields situation of kicking off belts every second lap. Because our supercharger setup was the same style as Matt's, like centrifugal at the front of the motor, it is the biggest nightmare to change a belt on. Like, it is not like a 10-minute fix. It is at least a 30-minute fix every time.
That's crazy.
So so then it was like, well, we still need the power and we need the boost. So we traded off and then went to turbo and nitrous instead, which obviously has its own kind of complications as well with heat and that kind of stuff, you know. But I feel like the turbos are more tunable setup, if you know what I mean.
Well, there's a little bit more you can play with, right? Like the supercharger, it's like cool. I get pulley size. I get like, and that's kind of it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. And so I'm assuming nitrous up until like a couple pounds of boost, and then just boost after that, or nitrous all the way through.
We shoot nitrous from about 2100 RPM, and then it turns off at about 3200. So it's only just to wake the turbos up, but then there's different parameters that, like, it also activates on 100% throttle, and depends on the amount of load on the motor, that kind of stuff. We have nitrous in fourth and fifth gear. It turns off completely, and it's all boost by gear at that point. And so tons of different parameters basically around it.
Just to get that dig, like, you know, tracks like coming out of the keyhole in Atlanta to be able to kind of like launch back out, or all of St. Louis, I assume.
Yeah. Actually, the St. Louis track, I hated it for like 5 years. I hated that track, but I think they found a track that actually works there this year. It was really good, I thought.
Yeah, it's amazing what like it was only like 5 feet too. Like, it wasn't massively different, but it was enough to make it flow. So you weren't just
it was more than 5 feet for sure. Like, the drive out of like outer 2, I think it is, and not having to keep on that like tighter like inside line that was on the inside of the grass, and then they made the new pavement, and we go all the way across that, like, and out on the outside edge of the old access road. So it was a lot different. Yeah.
No, it looked a lot flowier. I mean, obviously, I have no idea what it drives like, but you guys, for the most part, minus a few vocal minorities, were pretty happy with it in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming you've already seen the new Utah layout?
No, didn't even look at it.
Really? What?
No, didn't look at it.
Okay.
It don't matter anyway. When we get there, they'll do what they do every year. They'll change it 18 different times before we do a lap. We were all there last year after they gave us the track layout. We're walking around on Thursday and we're moving all the clipping points and changing the zones. Whoa, waste of time. After the first 10 minutes of practice and you see actually a couple of cars after making a pass, that's when you know what the track is going to be like.
Well, I mean, I think that's something cool that like maybe a lot of people at home don't know, is they'll look at what the quote unquote natural line ends up being, and then they'll start to shift clipping points. It's not usually anything massive, but it's a couple of feet. Like, you know, they're not going to completely change the layout, but it'll be like 2 feet one way or another. I know they did it in Orlando a fair bit this year too.
Palm Beach, I think 2014, we started the track. We were coming from the left side of the track, entering in, and we stopped practice halfway through and completely flipped and went the track in reverse because it was such a bad layout. But that's the only time they've ever really done that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was pushing real hard to get Utah backwards, but it's not gonna
I think it'd be sick.
Thank you.
That'd be cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Right? You
Yeah.
come into that huge bank and then go up the hill so the cars are all loaded up. Anyways.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Like everybody listening at home's like, yeah, okay, we get it. You want it backwards. I'm just gonna maybe this will be another year where they do that and they swap a track the other way. I
highly doubt it, but yeah, it would definitely be cool. I agree with it.
I think so. Cool. So I want to get into like before drifting, like what I'm still trying to wrap my head around why Ireland produces so many incredible drivers. Like it doesn't make sense looking at population, looking at like the lack of tracks that are there, the lack of manufacturers that are there. It literally makes no sense.
Well,
why Ireland.
Maybe it makes sense because the lack of things to actually do and entertain yourself in Ireland is like not exactly like it is in America, right? Here, if you want to go snowboarding, skiing, surfing, like it's all at your fingertips in America. You can do more or less anything that you want over here. Whereas over home, there wasn't many things to do. You could either play soccer, rugby, hurling, or Gaelic football. And if you weren't into ball sports, like there was nothing else to actually do other than drive. And we have so much access to farmland and that kind of stuff that, Jesus, everyone I know that like I went to school with and hung out with was all driving by the age of, if you weren't driving at 10 or 11, you were old. Really?
And that was all field driving then?
All in the fields, yeah. All in the fields. Okay. I had my first field car at 9 years old, I think. Had a Ford Sierra.
Of course, have to.
Mm-hmm.
So once everything's mowed down, it's just like, okay, this is what we do then? Like, is that, like, instead of riding your bike to your neighbor's house, you're like, I'm gonna run the field car over.
We done a trade-off with the farmer that we would go to his farm at 5 o'clock in the morning, herd in all the cows, and we'd milk the cows. We'd have them back out in the field by about 7:30, home, shower, and go to school. And as soon as we got out of school at 4 o'clock, we were straight up on the farm, and we would drive until it was dark.
That's crazy.
That was all we did. Just drive.
What, and that, so yeah, from 10 on. So like when did it, I guess, like turn to maybe serious drifting or whatever? Was that high school? Like, you don't have to admit to anything, but like, was the street racing scene as big in Ireland?
Oh, I done a massive amount of street drifting. Like massive amount.
Was that big in Ireland as well then?
Yeah,
like that?
It was big. There was a place in Waterford actually called the Port Road, and it was down at the bottom of a shipping port. But they had built the shipping port with the intention of taking in these massive ships, and they never actually took them in. So it was super quiet, and there'd be like no traffic there whatsoever. And every Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, there would be hundreds of cars down there, like hundreds of cars. They blocked the road off, and then everyone that was down there drifting would just drift all night. And actually,
wow.
I was arrested a couple of times down the road over it, and two of the cops, I'm actually after becoming friendly with now. I was just home in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, and I met one of them, and we were just talking about like old times, like, you know, he's like, well, at least you made it out. You actually done something good with what you were doing, the jackass when you were down on the Port Road.
Oh, yeah, the Port Road, huh? That's crazy. I was always curious, like how much that culture moved over, but it makes sense that like you guys seeded it early and with field drifting. But
our JDM scene in Ireland was like, I would say, second to only Japan at the time. Like we had every JDM car that like ever existed. That was like option DVDs and all that. Like all the A1 cars and everything would all end up in Ireland. It was crazy.
You had a 1 Via, didn't you?
Yeah,
wasn't that your first? Yeah,
that was my first like proper car. I had a S14 before that, which what I really kind of started off in. But okay. I would say the 1 Via was kind of like the start of, I know, actually starting to take it seriously, like, you know.
Okay. Huh. Well, I mean, it's a good it's definitely a good chassis to be starting with. So I'm not like a massive S chassis person. So like understanding what the 1 Via was, I was doing some research, like, okay, hang on, that's a term I've heard only a very few times. I wasn't sure if that was just like a European option.
Yep. Bought it out of Japan 2004 or 5, I can't remember.
Right.
And I drove that car all the way until September 2009. And then I parted it out to come and rent out a car off a shop in Seattle called Intech Racing and do Irwindale 09. And we got 4 laps in the rental car and it broke a transmission and they didn't have a spare for it. So that was it. So I thought it was all over. I thought the dream was over then. And went home to Ireland with my tail between my legs.
Didn't you win a championship though in 2009?
We won
the
the European Super Series at the time, the Pro Drift Series, which I think that was the last year of that championship. So the Irish Championship was like the stronger championship in Europe. I would say it was like honestly the best. And then Pro Drift was trying to take actually more of like an international footprint. So they out of what they call the Super Series, and we go like to Sweden and Norway, Finland, that kind of stuff. And that was the one I won, and then I was like, hell bent on coming over here. This is where I wanted to come to at that point.
So where does Sam Hubinet fall into all of this then? Like how did that introduction take place? And then
I know, I was actually texting him yesterday. Myself and Sam still actually keep a very good relationship. I call him dad and he calls me son still. But there was like, for us being at home, Formula Drift was always the pinnacle, right?
Right.
You get to see like, I know all the clips on YouTube and stuff of like semi trucks with drift cars. Like how does that even make sense? All of us are towing around our drift cars with transit vans and open trailers, and it was just like, it felt like so far out of reach that like it was never going to be a thing. But there was a group of 10 of us that came over to support James Dean, Eric O'Sullivan in November 2008 for the Bull Championships on the port in Long Beach.
Right.
And I remember like we were there watching. Sam was in the Viper and Race was in a Pontiac Solstice. Tanner was driving a 370Z, and like they were like superstars, like professional drifters, like insane. But I spent that whole weekend up in the grandstand, and I just was like, this is it. I don't give a fuck. This is where I'm coming back to. This is what I'm gonna do.
It's always funny hearing those moments from different drivers when they're like, you know, this was it. Like I saw it, I knew, and then at that point in time, everything became about just doing that.
That was it. That was it. Like I was here at the time with one of my friends that was a manager of mine, I suppose, at the time. His name was Ian Bergen, and the two of us were up in the grandstand. I'm like, dude, whatever happens, I want to be back here next year driving. And he was the one that helped me sort out actually to drive at Intech Racing, and he sourced the car and organised the rental fee, and we came over here the following October and drove in Irwindale.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's cool that like I couldn't. I guess at the time, like, yeah, obviously they'd be superstars, but what always makes me curious is like how many people are sitting in the grandstands this year that are going through that exact same thing where they're like watching guys like you and they're like, this is it. Like, this is the thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, 3-4 years down the road, we're going to have a similar story where, you know, hopefully they're on the show and we're doing the exact same thing. Yeah. Do you, I guess like in your town, do you get that a lot now? Like, is there a lot of, you know, I know you go back home on the odd occasion. Is it one of those where like you're kind of known in the town as the guy that went on and did FD, or?
Yeah, like I would, it's funny when you go back home, like I don't get back home as often as I would like to. I usually get home once or twice a year, but when I get home, I try to like spend as much time with family and my old friends as I can. So I don't really see a lot of people, but like we would obviously go out and maybe drinking a couple of beers at the bar, and I would know like people I'd know, like I went to school with or whatever, or that, and they would be like, "Can't believe that you actually made it like in America and you're over there still actually doing the thing," you know? So, but it's also like a different life path, right? It's like people like me, and there's a lot of us, obviously, like James Dean and Chelsea's and Travis Readers, and we've like given up everything else in our life to only do this. You know, like, I know, I go home and I meet these people and they have wives, kids, houses, stable job and stuff. And it's like, like we live a very different life. Like, you know, it's very much on the go, and our whole, like everything we do every day is all dedicated around either Formula Drift or drifting in some form of like capacity, like, you know?
Yeah. You gave up a flooring empire to come over and run race cars.
Yeah. My dad has a successful flooring company in Ireland. I left school pretty early and I went into that, and I was very, very good at the install aspect of that. Like, I'm managing the project stuff, and I think for him, he thought I was gonna take it over. That's what he was kind of shaping me into, and so did I, honestly. Until like I got over here, like, and I got a taste for it. And even my first 4 years of FD, I would come here for 10 days. FD, myself and just one other guy, two of us would come. He would spot, two of us would prep the car, two of us would change the tires and do the fuel and everything, like in between runs. And we would fly back home on the Sunday after FD, and I'd go back into work in the flooring shop, and I'd work 80 or 90 hours a week because I was paid on how much I install. So like there was no limitation. Yeah. And we were always doing kind of bigger contract work, and I'd go up, say if we were working in Dublin, it's 100 miles away from my parents' house. I would go up and I'd hype in the van all week in the back of a transit van because I would want to install for 18 or 19 hours a day.
Yeah, you might as well. If you're getting the project wise, right? Like,
exactly.
Just keep going.
I would go back over the 3 weeks and make like 10 grand or 12 grand. And I'd take all the money, come back over here and spend it all on FD.
What? I'm always curious about this. Like, so I live in Canada, and like, you know, obviously Canada and the US, it's basically the same with a couple of fun exceptions. Which I'm going to get to Canada as well, because like obviously you have some love for the country. But what was like the first thing that you went and did that was like the most American thing you did? Like coming from Ireland, you came over, you went to America, and you're
Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Like it's not a real holiday. It's just made this up.
It's just a reason to eat food.
It's like having like a pre-Christmas before Christmas, you know?
Yeah, that's a Christmas warm-up.
I'd say I was in the States 7 years before I was here actually for Thanksgiving. And like the first ever time doing it, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is actually like properly an American holiday, you know?
Yeah, it is. It's very American. It's like, it's just excess for the sake of excess, right? Like you just eat and drink until it hurts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but like apart from that, I've obviously become very Americanized in the way like I spend a lot of time over here, like a lot.
Yeah.
So I understand the culture more now, and like it's not as foreign as it once was to me, you know.
Yeah, it does lose some luster after a while. I remember like just getting excited to jump the border, and I'd always like be like all nervous and stuff. And like now it's just a chore. Like it's just a thing I have to do to go and do other stuff.
Yep.
So
I used to have that same feeling actually when we would land in LAX, because we'd almost always high into like LAX, and like the feel of seeing all the American cars, like the Crown Vics and the Escalades and that, and like, oh, we're definitely in America.
Yeah.
Now I know every time I land in LAX, I'm like, Jesus Christ, could I land in any other airport?
Dude, it's brutal. Of all the airports,
I hate it.
There's two airports that I can't stand whenever I'm flying. LAX is one of them, and then Paris. The airport in Paris is
How's
a
the
nightmare.
Yeah. How's the goal? Sucks.
Oh my God. Just like you land and then you get in a bus and then you take that bus somewhere and then you go through security again to then take another bus to then go through a different security to then take another bus to then get to your gate and hopefully you're on time.
Yep.
It's the worst.
I'm also, I suppose I'm kind of spoiled now because our shop is literally beside the runway of John Wayne. So if I have a 3 p.m. flight, like I leave the shop at like 2:20, 2:25. I'm spoiled now.
And you got TSA pre and you just walk right through laptops.
It's so easy now.
That's actually pretty sweet. I can't say much. I'm like 30 minutes from Detroit, even though I'm in Canada. Like, and it's a great airport. Like, I mean, it's really nice, especially if you fly Delta. But anyways, alluding to Canada, Canada being, I believe, your best finish ever, second place.
Had a few second places. We had Jersey second place, Atlanta second place, Canada second place. So had a few times. Yeah. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right?
Yeah, that's got to be tough. But I mean, it definitely takes time. You're also driving an obscure chassis in a lot of ways. I mean, it's not as big as I originally thought. Like, I feel like you probably hear that a lot, where people are like, "Oh, this thing's actually not that big." Yeah,
I don't hear that a lot.
All right, fair. Good for you. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I mean, as a kid, like I'd seen Vipers and stuff like that, and for some reason, every time I saw your car on TV, I was like, "It's got to be huge." And then, like, I got there and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like it's like a slightly bigger Miata almost. Like it's really not.
It's also like it's proportionally obviously not the same as all the rest of the cars, so it feels,
it's a lot of hood.
Yeah, exactly. It feels massive when you look at the hood, right? But from the factory, they're 97.8 inches of wheelbase. We have ours stretched as far as we can to like 99.1. So it's still shorter than a 240. It's like 14 inches shorter than a Mustang.
Okay.
So it's I think Turk's Corolla is 105 inches, and that's a grocery getter.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a small car, you know.
What's the weight distribution on it?
51 rear, 49 front.
Okay, so you've got that like dialed in at this point.
Like, the car is a fantastic car. It's just like, because we've R&D'd all of the parts ourselves and everything in the motor package, and like we get to a point where like it's really good, and then we try to like push it on a bit harder, and we find other issues that we never had before. Like, we never had a camshaft in the motor come apart in the 10 years of driving them ever. 4 of them are after coming apart this year on us.
This year?
So it's like, so it's like,
Jesus.
It's stuff that we like thought was solved that we ever even looked at. It was ever even on our list of like, hey, this is what we need to be working on next. And next minute we're beating the piss out of the motor because the judges obviously want us on the rev limiter, and now camshafts are coming apart. And then we got camshafts custom made and designed, but the material was more rigid than the factory ones, and Vipers don't have airings on the camshaft. They just float on a bed of oil in the journal. So it was hazing the camshafts inside in the block then. It's like, all things, how are you going to know unless you're pushing the envelope with it, like, you know?
Yeah, I guess being on the bleeding edge of development is just a pain in the ass.
Yep. And then like we make all of our own uprights and everything. They're all CNC parts, and we keep on trying to take as much weight out of them as we can to lower actually the gross vehicle weight. Mm-hmm. And then we're finding places that they're cracking now that they never cracked in before, and that kind of stuff. It's just all development stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I had all the money in the world, I would have guys doing R&D all day, every day, but still, like, we are like a privateer team. So we have to be like very cautious about the way we spend money, and we need to like keep a pretty large amount of hush fund, because I know every time we break a motor, it's over 40 grand. Like when you break a motor, you know.
Jeez.
So when you're trying to like R&D a motor, you're really not wanting things to go wrong. So we're like changing things very, very incrementally on the motor, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So on the point of privateer, so this is like, you don't have to get into any details, but your switch to HyperNFT from somebody, from my perspective, coming from a marketing background, raised like a lot of questions, but in a really good way.
Yeah, well, right? That was the idea of it, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sitting there going like, oh, this is stupid. I went, to take every logo off of that car to run one is a really interesting choice. And obviously, the mysterious figure that is Hyper invested a fair bit into the program. I have some guesses as to like what that deal is based on like your videos and everything else. No,
I don't know your guesses.
No, I don't know who he is. I mean, obviously, if I did some digging, I could probably figure out a little bit. But I can
tell you on this podcast if you want. For anyone that ever wants to know him, ever wants to meet him, we do Cars and Coffee in San Clemente the last Saturday of every month, and he's always there with me. So anyone that ever wants to meet him, he's not like an elusive figure. He's always there with me.
So, but okay, so like one, I'm going to try and figure that out because I think that lines up with FD Irwindale potentially. So I'll be in town for that. Maybe I will, if you're going, I'll tag along. Because I'm massively interested. I'm assuming you do some sort of maintenance or work with the cars as part of this deal. Yeah. And that's, you know, he's getting a race car, great advertising to a group of people that are more than likely in this space that fit the demographic well. Yeah. I'm assuming that pitch went pretty good. And then part of that deal is that you then also maintain, help upkeep, things like that.
That was not the original aspect of the deal, but the two of us are very, the two of us are very similar in personality. We're not too far apart in age. He's 5 or 6 years older than me as all. So we kind of connect well. He's also not like an American citizen, so he understands the struggles of actually coming over here and what it's really like. And even with smaller things, with trying to get social security number and visas and like permits for working and tax, and like it's so much more difficult when you're not from here, like so much more challenging. So the two of us connected actually well on that sense of friendship. He was a car guy all his life, but never had like massive access on cars. Always had like unique stuff, but not like I know all the hypercars he has now. Mm-hmm. And he then started doing some track driving. He has a couple of GT3 RSs, and he spent 9 months at the track driving every single day. And he got to a point in his driving that he could do like the exact same lap time every single lap, but was not able to progress past that. And I went up and I gave him a couple of tips, and he immediately took a second off the lap. And then I went and I gave him a day of coaching, and then he took 2 more seconds off it, to the point where the two of us are lapping now within a tenth of each other now, which is scary because he's becoming a better driver than me right now. So like we connected well. He understands that like I understand driving and not just drifting. So he started giving me access on his cars, like when they would be going to service or be transported. He doesn't allow anyone drive any of his fleet. His story is you can only drive any of his car if you can actually afford to replace it. And obviously I don't have millions and millions of dollars, but he knows that like I understand the cars and the way of driving them and stuff. So it's just opened up into kind of becoming like a janitor of all these hypercars.
Okay. Huh. That's super interesting. I didn't realize you had such a grip background. I feel like there's a lot of inherence that you're going to learn from drifting when it comes to grip racing, understand slip angle, understanding apex and corner, left foot braking, rotating.
I can tell you, like, for anyone that is, I know that's out there that's listening and they're into actually like professional driving, the best talent you can ever learn is drifting.
Right.
It is the best talent. You'll understand way more than anyone else that is wholly a grip driver or whatever, you know. It gives you so much more under it. and you're also comfortable when you're there.
Right. And I think that's probably the more important part. Like, how many times do we see guys that like overcorrect a little bit and they just spin out, whereas literally drifting is everything but the spin out.
I was driving a Hyper Senna up at a track, Spring Mountain, and like driving it at 10 tenths on the way into like every corner, hiding it like on the way out, and the guys were watching like, you're on the limit, like, and like I'm actually back in the pit lane, like, no, that's just like comfortable, like, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't think it's the best skill you can have. yeah, exactly.
But even if you watch F1 level drive, not even F1, if you watch basically anything that's like super high level, it doesn't have to be F1. They are sliding those cars around to a degree. It's just it's not drifting. They're not throwing the whole back end out. Like that's how they pivot them around the corner.
I was just actually watching a NASCAR clip on my phone, like literally before you caught me.
Is NASCAR? Oh, no way.
Yeah, but they're they're sliding all the corners.
Yeah. It's way more important than I guess a lot of people think, but that's 100%. Interesting that you were able to pull so much out of his lap time. Like 3 seconds total is nuts.
If you watch the likes of like Tanner or Samuel, like, or any of those guys that were predominantly pro drifters, went off and done rallycross and that kind of stuff, they're always at the cutting edge of the grid straight away. Because they're so natural in that like feeling and environment that a car actually moving around underneath them. And I think it helps you with like being able to drive through characteristics of different cars as well, like, you know?
Okay. Just like understanding where their limit is, or just like, getting over their shortcomings.
Like, I think it helps you get over the shortcomings of other cars a lot. There's a couple of cars that we track here. They're McLaren 570Ss, and they're like, they'll do a comparable lap time with a GT2 RS. Like, we can lap within 3 or 4 tenths of the GT2 RS, but the McLaren is so much more of a handful to drive. Like, it is a pig in comparison. But understanding how it actually moves around under braking and being confident enough, like, in having the car move underneath you, like, and not get like choked up or whatever, or heavy on the brake pedal, I think really, really helps.
Yeah. Huh. That's neat. I've never been in that level of car as a driver, so I don't understand at what point. I think most people listening wouldn't understand like at that, like what that car is doing. But I do. I mean, I've watched enough Top Gear to know. But these cars, like, they're fighting you the whole time. Like, they're not. Time. Yeah, they're trying to bite back, and they're not forgiving at all. But I guess coming from FD, which, you know, these cars are incredibly gripped up, almost to the same level. They have more horsepower than a lot of these cars.
The pro cars at the moment are insane.
Yeah, it's wild.
The pro cars are absolutely nuts. They're the craziest cars I've ever driven.
Yeah, and that's nuts to say.
Like, I'm after driving like a lot of very, very fast cars in the last couple of years, and the only car that makes me go, holy shit, still is the pro car. Like, that thing is wild.
What is it? Like, what characteristic is it? Is it just the power, like the grip levels, the snappiness, like, or just it's just like trying to kill you?
It's like, that's it. Like you have to be so awake, like, when you're driving it. Like, we done a day actually a couple of weeks ago, like, out in a practice car of a practice Viper as well, and it makes like 570 at the tire, but like everything feels as though it's in slow motion. Like, it feels so easy and moving around. The pro cars, like, dude, they're so fast when they're sideways now. They accelerate so hard, and we make so much grip that you're like, I don't know, say almost everyone on the grid is 1,000 horsepower. Like you are loading the motor up that it's laboring at 1,000 horsepower. That's only barely up to break the tires loose.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of it that way.
For guys that drive cars on the street, like, I'll talk with guys all the time. They're like, oh, this is 700 horsepower, this is 800 horsepower. And I know I drive their cars, and it's like, you'd be lucky if it's 450. Like, 700 horsepower on the street is absolutely insanely fast car. Like,
Yeah.
it is insanely fast car. So having all of our cars that are over 1,000 horsepower, they're as light as they're possibly able to be. We're all on proper tires with massive sidewalls. 90% of the cars on the grid are hopping wheelies that we're putting that much drive and load in the cars. They're insane.
Yeah. Do you think we've gone too far? Like, I know there's a huge
no.
All right, cool. You're with me on this then.
No.
All right, good.
It is supposed to be the pinnacle of the sport. It's supposed to be the most extreme aspect of it. We did do an event in Ireland called LZ Fest a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was on the same tire. And I thought the driving aspect was great because, like, it was a good playing field. That it really didn't actually matter about the tire, like, or the car. Like, everyone was the same there. So that was fun. But I think FD should be like the most extreme aspect of drifting it can be, you know?
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. I want there to be both. Like, I think I would love to see them introduce a full spec series, not just like pro spec.
Yep.
I would love to see, like, and obviously it comes down to money, but like Nissan or whoever jump on, build us a bunch of Zs, all in the same tire, suspension.
I agree.
I would love to see that. I do think that the tandems would be incredible. But I also want to see guys barely able to get 2 laps out of a set of tires.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool.
I put the argument down that we need to get to a point where you get 1 lap on a set of tires and everybody runs single lugs and you have to hot swap it at the line. And that's pit stops are part of drifting. That if it's not ready, you can't leave the line and you're a lot behind. But anyways.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think the race that we're in financially and what we're doing with car development is not the same. It's like car development is going like this and it's like slowly catching up financially. The fear I have is that, like, the big names in the sport that, like, essentially carry the sport, right? Like, there's probably 10 to 16 drivers that carry the sport.
Right.
It's those guys aging out or not being able to find the kind of funding that they need because all of us are getting close to 40 years old or past 40 years old.
Right.
Everyone at some point is all wanting to actually be a real human being and have a house and a wife and kids and, like, God knows, a fucking savings account. Imagine that. So, like, the fear I have is, like, the guys that are what I consider Formula Drift are going to age out or find a different way of actually making money, and that the sport will tap out before it was financially able to catch up.
I still think we are one large company away from it all changing, but I feel like we've been that way for 10 years. Like, if I've said it so many times, but, like, if one of the brands that represents a NASCAR driver per se realizes that you can run an entire FD season for less than what it costs to run one race with a NASCAR, and the demographic is better, no offense to NASCAR fans.
Of course,
like,
I get it.
Yeah. All, like, DHL. If DHL figures out, oh, I can throw, let's say $300,000, which is, like, that's a real nice title sponsorship for the year. $300,000 to run a program. You could buy the whole program at that point.
No, you couldn't. You wouldn't come close to it.
What? Come on.
You wouldn't come close to it.
Maybe not your program, but there's definitely guys on that grid that you can buy a program for $300,000.
That's absolutely the problem. Is there's such a discrepancy between, like, say, I know the RTOs, and then programs at the back of the grid. There's a financial discrepancy there, right?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
I personally think the way of doing it is 32 slots, franchise 16 teams. Mm-hmm. Every team has to be a 2-car team. And so then the 16 teams or the series can control the minimum high-end of a sponsorship. The problem, I think, is we have guys on the grid that are selling sponsorships for $5,000 or $10,000, and then there's other guys like, I don't know, like RTO or whatever, who have 30 staff that run there. Like,
Yeah.
you
It's a
can't
big
do
difference.
that, you know? Yeah. And like, it's also, you're not comparing apples to apples, right? It's like comparing a Koenigsegg with a Camry. Like, absolutely, they're both cars and they get you from A to B, but it's not the same thing you're getting.
But isn't that kind of what makes the sport awesome though? Is the fact that, like,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll point at an easy one, but like a Jonathan Hurst, who is notorious for having a low budget, going out and taking out guys that have budgets that are 10, 15, 20 times more than him.
Absolutely. But like, I love Hurst. I think he's a fantastic driver. He's actually become a very, very good friend of mine. Amazingly talented driver. I'd love to see him actually getting in a program like in a couple of years' time that he actually deserves to be in, and not be trying to kill himself to as the NFT, because he's one bad crash in the wall at, I don't know, FD Long Beach away from not actually making the rest of the season, you know? And that sucks.
Yeah, which
that
basically almost happened to him, right? Like it did. So, like, I mean, he crashed, and what do you do?
I think of having the pinnacle of FD as 16 franchise teams, who you have like a union or whatever that control the financial buy-in of other people. So everyone's on a level playing field, and then you have like a Pro 2 and then a Pro Spec, and the Pro Spec is all identical cars, all run by like an Olsberg MSC or whatever, and they done the RX 2 cars from Rallycross, all identical cars. That's the way they are, and you pay your 30 grand a weekend or whatever, and you drive it. And that's the Spec series. Pro 2, I would do as like spec size tires. So like the rules of the cars are similar to what we have now, but you can only run a 265 or a 255 or whatever.
255, yeah.
So there's no point in overbuilding your car at that point. And I think that would be a fantastic series and championship. And then you have like Pro Extreme or whatever, which is now what Pro 1 is.
Yeah.
And not have any problem with a Forsberg or a me or a Chelsea showing up and driving in Pro 1 and Pro 2 over the weekend.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do in short course, right? You'll have the same guys in the Pro 4 truck and the Pro 2 truck and the Pro Light truck.
We've had a couple of guys over the years do that. I mean, I think Ryan Littrell did that for a bit. I want to say Alec Robbins did that, but I know what you're saying. It's not every weekend.
I'm pretty sure FD stopped it though. I don't think you can do it anymore. Yeah.
It was like the bottom, if you were bottom 10, you were allowed to do both or something.
Yeah. Jeff Jones, I think that was the turning point in Jeff Jones's like competitive career. He's always been a fantastic driver, Jeff.
Oh, he's a great driver.
Fantastic character as well. Like really, really good for the sport, I think.
He's great,
but he made, he done Pro 2 as well, probably 2018. And I could see the change in him straight away. Like to be like, he was always a good driver, but to be like, he can put anyone on the trailer now, you know?
Yeah, he did. He really did have a turning point. And I mean, I feel like he kind of like peaked and then struggled, but he's also had, last year was pretty good for him. This year's been okay. Yeah, it's
I think his struggle is more with the maintenance of the car than actually the driving ability of it.
But that comes down to money, right? Because like if you have
it does,
5 staff, then you tear the car. Yeah. Exactly,
because Jeff has a business that they do shows or stages or something like that. He does
like stage build outs.
So now he's like focusing energy on those things to actually be able to make a living and everything else. So your time in your program becomes more and more and more limited all the time, and then that's when the car becomes unreliable. Like, you know.
Well, I mean, we talked about it a bunch here where it's like it has more to do with not having to worry about stuff when you're at the line. Like Simon Olsen's the perfect example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like nothing against Odie's car. I think Odie builds an incredible car, obviously, but like Simon doesn't have to worry about things. He just gets in the car and drives, and we've never seen a better Simon Olsen.
Yeah.
Chelsea Denofa was the same thing. He stopped worrying about his car. He had it all not provided. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that, but regardless, he didn't have to worry about getting fuel, getting tires, arranging for flights. Like it just happened.
Yeah.
So so here's a hypothetical for you. Would you do the same though? Like if somebody, if an RTR came to you and was like, Dean, Vaughn's going to retire again. We need another driver. Here's the cost. You can just jump in. You don't have to worry about anything. You just drive the car. Would you do that?
It would have to be like the right situation for me. I'm after running my own program over here for 14 years.
Yeah. So it's tough to give up.
It's very difficult to release the control. I have also my personality is I'm a control freak and I like things to look and be like the exact way I want it. And honestly, I get as much satisfaction out of the program and the operations and the sponsorship selling and the activation and all that as I do out of driving. I love driving. It's obviously my passion, but like I love the architecture of putting it all together, and then my payoff is getting to, I don't know, drive the car, you know?
Yeah.
My ideal thing would be moving forward is like putting a second car on the grid with a driver that's like, say when Vaughn brought on Chelsea, like someone that you know is going to be able to wheel the car. Bringing on another driver to drive a second car, the fact that I'm after doing all the R&D and development on the car right now, and they should be getting into something that's competitive and enjoying the program from having a competitive teammate in the exact same car that I'm actually able to compare against. Having a program that we're selling sponsorships and activations for two people, and also watching someone else kind of progress and fulfill their dreams, like, you know.
Is that a conversation you've had yet? Like,
I don't
want to blow up your spot.
We've talked about it like so many times. The problem is how much my program costs to run. Someone would have to bring a lot of money to even make it make sense, like, you know.
Right.
And obviously we don't have support of a Dodge anymore. So like starting off at a base of Hyper's 80 grand even just to take it apart.
I think if you dye 2 red stripes in your hair again, that Dodge will come back. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, but like
I know it was only 1 red stripe last time. You need 2.
I know. I've had the conversation. Like I've had the conversation with Dodge at pilot times, and they were about it. Like I don't know if it came back in a Challenger or a Charger. I'm just not interested in it.
Right now, for the podcast listeners only, we're offering $5 off each ticket purchased on Formula Drift website by using FD Podcast when you check out. That is FD Podcast. I don't know if you need a capital, the FD, but try it either way. So head over to formuladrift.com, pick up the tickets, then enter code FD Podcast, get $5 off all 8 events this year. So 20 a season. Head over. If you're going, save $5. Might as well. You couldn't have jumped in like a new ACR Viper or something? That would have been...
No, because they killed the Vipers in 2017 was the last year of production, you know?
Yeah.
So like they don't want to spend money on supporting something that they can't monetize anymore. Yeah, we've talked about having like a Charger that is like a drift taxi and that kind of stuff, but like it also has to make sense for what I have a commitment that they want to get in on. How much is it going to take away from us time-wise? Yeah. And even after the car is built, you've also got to go and actually do activations and run the thing and maintain it, like, you know. And I spent so long actually downsizing into 1 rig away from having 2 all the time. It's like, do I want to have another truck on the road? Do I want to have a full-time truck driver? Do I want to have the headache? And I know I'm going to make money out of it. And I'm at a stage now where I know I've been doing this now for 19 years, and I think about things differently than how I did before. Whereas before I would do every opportunity, no matter what it was. If I got to drive a race car, I'd do it. Now I'm like, I'll be 35 tomorrow.
Oh, damn. Happy birthday.
Like, thanks very much.
I had no idea.
I'm like, I only want to do actually things that like actually make sense and that I want to do now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That hurts me to hear because, like, I know.
Believe me,
it does.
I'm the same. Believe me. I'm like, I want to build every single car and do, I know everything I can, but at the same time, I'm like, I know I'm 35. I don't own a house yet. Like that's something I really want to do now.
Yeah.
and just like go on to that next step of having a real life.
It's so there's this common thread with, and you've already touched on it. I know I've touched on it, but like between all of you pro drivers, where you guys give up everything to be here. And like I've had people ask me like, oh, why don't you like compete or anything? I'm like, because I've talked with so many people at a high level that I know I don't have it. Like I've got the opposite. I've got the house, the wife and kids. Like,
yep.
I'm good. I've done all that, but I know what needs to happen to even be to be pro-am level or pro 2 level. I'm not willing to do that. And it's so weird for me to hear you guys talk about it, because it's not, everybody talks about it like they didn't have a choice. They're like, no. It wasn't like I decided this, like this is just my everything. Like I didn't decide.
This is like, I'm here, we're talking, it's a Sunday, like, and I've been in the shop all day, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I never leave the 4 walls. We were here actually last night, filming a vlog here until 3 a.m. Like, it's every single thing we do. It's everything.
Speaking of, one, love the vlogs. What you guys have done over the last year is nuts. We talked briefly about like video editing background. The break-in, like I think it was after the channel was hacked or something that.
Yeah.
Dude, the stair scene, I probably watched that, I don't know, 4 times. I laughed so hard.
The funny thing is, that was not actually planned. Mark is actually a good friend of mine, and the two of us, like, we fuck with each other a lot. Like all day, we're like railing hard on each other. And I just saw my opportunity when he's standing on top of the stairs and he's in all padding. I'm like, oh, he's going. So I just kicked him down.
Maybe that's why it was so good, because like you could tell he didn't know.
It was just like, it was actually organic, because it actually was organic.
Oh my God, that's so good. When did you like decide that like the vlogging part was that important to the program?
We always knew it was, right? It was always like a part of something that I knew we had to do at some point. But I particularly don't like being on camera. Obviously, like having a stutter and stuff makes it so much more challenging. It's way harder on my editor, because he tries to like help me, I suppose, by cutting out like as much as he can. I'm like, fuck it, just leave it in there. But I was maybe self-conscious about that when I was younger, to the point where that was why I didn't do it. And then we started working with Daily Driven Exotics a couple of years back, like 3 or 4 years back or whatever. And I saw like firsthand, I knew it was important, but like to see the value of it firsthand, it triggered obviously something in my mind. That like, not to the point where like, oh yeah, like I want to do that, but it's like, man, this is going to become like an even bigger aspect of the race program moving forward than I think any of us are after giving credit for. And honestly, I think that's the one thing all the FD drivers have sucked at, except for Adam LZ, is all of us had a stage to elevate our vlogging game better than anyone else had out there. And there wasn't any of us that done it. Everyone like probably talk head on. Like, I know I did. I'm like, oh, I'd never do YouTube ever. Until you see someone like Adam LZ and they come in and you see like the eyeballs that they control, the amount of merch he's able to sell and stuff. Man. And then you're like, oh my God, we missed the boat.
I had heard rumors about the amount of merch he's sold in a couple of events, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Like enough where like it shook me. I'm like, that. And once again, these are people just guessing, and I'm like, you're probably still 30% below where it actually is. Yeah,
like I'd have a very good idea now, because we deal like a lot in merch at the moment, and I know like how much it costs. Myself and Adam use the same production company. Shout out Nate Hamilton.
144 Screen House, man.
Yeah, but
Print House, yeah.
So like, I could guess, I think, pretty accurately how much he does every weekend, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And I think like the power of branding. Like I've been walking around in stores in Ireland and stuff, and you see a random kid and they're wearing an LZM t-shirt, and you're like, he gets it. Like Adam understood it better than any of the drivers on the grid, and he came in and shit on everyone, exposure-wise and media-wise, and now everyone else is scrambling around and all trying to get into a market that's already saturated.
And like, this is something I've screamed from the treetops, where it's like, just find a media guy. Even if they're like not great, just find one and get one and like do whatever you can to produce content.
Become obsessed with it. Like, I would say our success on YouTube over the last, like, we launched our first video almost 12 months to the day. I think we launched it August 30th last year. And I would say the obsession I had about it, like, for 5 months before we even launched, I would watch 14 hours a day of YouTube. Like, I completely left the boys handle everything on the car on their own. I'm like, I don't care. Like, this has to work. This has to work. And I got obsessed about it. And I kind of like that with almost every project that we ever do. Like, I become obsessed to the point where it's actually borderline unhealthy.
I can very much relate to that. I get the exact same. It's a dog with a bone, where you're like, no, like everything I'm doing now. Like, I got into 3D printing last year. Yeah. And like, it was just tunnel focus, where like I was like, I mean, I got a wife and kids. I was in I built an area for 3D printing. Yep. And then it was just like everything I needed to know, everything I could know, I had to know it. And then, I don't know about you, but I get to a point where like, I am probably better than the majority of people at that thing. And then I get bored and just find something else.
So I haven't got bored of it. We took a bit of a break off of YouTube like a month or so ago. We kind of went 4 weeks and we didn't upload because I was happy with everything we had produced up to that point. And I was like, knowing myself, I don't want to make the same content every single day for the next 10 years. That is not what I'm about. Okay. I wanted to understand the channel and what I wanted to do for the next 10 years of my life, and make sure the content was focused around the direction of how that was going to go. Because I didn't want to be building something that was in line A and all my other focus was going this way. So I wanted to make sure whatever I was doing was going to be aligned. And we had some stuff that we've been working on for over a year here, and finally get the green light last week. So now I'm feeling good about the direction I want to go back in with it now. And it's not going to be vloggy. We're not going to vlog every day. There will be an element of it. I'm going to let the boys in the shop do like vloggy stuff, but I'm going to focus more on like filming the stuff I actually want to do.
Is this like a build? I don't know what you can talk about. This comes out on Wednesday, but anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, It's still a long way from being public knowledge.
Okay.
But yeah, that's cool. We're building something in the Orange County area that's going to be for everybody in the car community. And I see this as been like the next 10 years of what I do.
Is it a collector?
It doesn't matter.
Is it an exhaust collector that's been sitting in? Anyways.
No, it's not a car. It's not a car. It's obviously based around cars and automotive, but it's also based around the lifestyle and getting like everyone involved in something, you know.
Good. I will stop pushing. But yeah, I will say like the way that I would think the biggest difference with the content you guys have produced, and I think there's two moments like that come into my mind, and they're probably two of the biggest videos, if I'm not mistaken. Long Beach this year, and because that like you and Kevin, that was great. And like, I mean, I think you guys played it well, titled it well, thumbnailed it well. And like, I don't know how bad the situation actually was.
It was actually heated at the time.
But it was captured well, and it wasn't edited in a way that was disingenuous.
No. And honestly, I think that's like a good thing about our videos is I've tried to keep them like as authentic as possible. Like we don't hype out any of the cursing unless it's in the first 30 seconds. So if you curse in the first 30 seconds, the video is going to get demonetized.
Pretty sure you did that here, but yeah, go on.
Whatever. I don't care. I'm not getting the monetization of this video. That's your problem.
Touche.
But like, I think our videos are very much like shows who actually the characters are, and it's not someone being a certain way on camera, like, and then when you meet them, they're like completely different person.
I've always said that like being on camera is like 10% more than what you are. Like you have to, almost in a way that like if you're acting on stage, like you have to project a little bit louder, right?
Yeah.
Or like bands play like 10% faster on stage. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you and I have chatted a little bit off screen. I'm a little bit more, I probably talk with my hands a little bit more on camera, but in real life, I ask just as many questions and I'm just as annoying.
Yeah.
So, and knowing your guys, I've actually had dinner with your guys a couple of times.
Yep.
It's the same way. They might be a little bit more when the camera's on, but it's the same person.
We'll be more politically correct on the camera, but like still on the edgier side. And like the only reason why that is because now people can cut and chop up a video and make it look any way they want, right?
Yeah.
So like we can't say things that like can be massively taken out of context.
Right.
Whereas if you hung out in the shop with us every day and like you hear the conversations and stuff that go on here, you couldn't post them because somebody would get their feelings hurt, and that's not the way it's meant. It's meant in a joking term, like, you know?
Yeah. I think the best example of that is the Kazuya Taguchi situation. I think that was documented really well, and I also think it really showed like your raw emotion in the car during the situation, and it that whole thing got really overshadowed with the Denofa situation, which I don't know if it's like
that's okay.
a good thing or a bad thing, but like I don't know, it was like, weird. Where are you guys at now?
I was talking with Taguchi in Seattle. It's all good. Like it doesn't matter how the driver is. Like James Dean is one of my best mates. The two of us will hang out like all weekend with FD together. But like if I pull up on the line beside him, I absolutely want to fucking rip his head off. Like, of course I want to beat him. Like, and it doesn't matter, you know. But like as soon as it's over, like it's all back to normal. We're all friends. Like we're all competitive type A alpha male personality. Like that's what it is. Everyone wants to be the best. Everyone wants to be the dominant one, and it's good, man. That's a good environment to live in. That's what makes you grow. What makes you better. What I hate is the people that will get beat and then they'll go not say anything in person or whatever, and then they'll go bitch online about it. It's like, if you have a problem with them, just go down to their pit and talk it out with them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I don't actually go down and get their opinion. Because, like, I still think I was in the right, like, on the situation, and Higuchi thinks he was in the right. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe your argument was that he was off throttle before he went off, and his argument was I was off, that's why I went off throttle.
It's a little bit more than that. So, like, I actually blamed FD for it, actually more than anything, because the Outerzone has, like, a hyperonic concrete edge on the Outerzone, and it drops down about, like, 8 inches, and he was after dropping a tire like at the wall there, so he has no drive. When you unload the back wheel of the car, it has absolutely no drive. So FD are the ones that wants the chase driver to be in the pocket, like, and I'm on the track, my car's obviously hooked up and going. He has a tire off, he has no drive. Of course I'm going to run into him if I'm in the right place, like, you know. And I also understand it's a hard thing to police, but like I was arguing with FD, well, if you're not going to ding him over being at higher off course, how are you dinging me over touching him in his driver door? Yeah. Like, because the only reason why I touched him is because his car had no drive. So it's like, look, it's always going to be opinion based. Like, that is obviously the beauty of our sport and the downfall of our sport. Like, it's fantastic because it's all like judged and objective, and they're up to them and manipulate it any way they want. But like, it's also the bad side of it as well, because when you try getting corporate sponsors, it's really hard for them to understand a sport and not feel like they're being picked on or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, because it's not like there's, person gets across the line first and
Exactly.
that's the race, right?
It's exactly like surfing. How do you judge surfing? There's no how the waves are identical.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
How are you telling me how is better at it? Like,
Are you into surfing? You've brought it up a couple of times. Like,
no, I compare our sport a lot with like surfing, BMX, skateboarding, that kind of stuff, because there's so many variables in it, and they're all judged sports.
I think skateboarding and BMX are probably easier to judge because you can look at the technique. Like, whereas this is, it's so much harder. I think surfing is actually a really good comparison. I think
it's honestly the best one as well. That's the one I typically use, because also every car is different, every tire is different, everyone's on a different shock, spring, time of day, the track changes, it gets more rubbered in, like it's always changing. So it makes it more difficult judging.
All right, last question for you here. So let's say Ryan Sage retires tomorrow and goes, Dean Kearney, you're going to run FD. What do you implement for next year?
Not for next year. The following year, I would franchise all the teams.
Yeah, you would do that? You just straight away?
Instantly. Now,
do you? Yeah. Well, I mean, logistically, how would you? I guess it doesn't matter. You're the president of the company now. You just tell that's what's going to happen.
I don't want to hurt everyone's feelings in the way I do it, so I'll keep my opinions to myself. But I think that's honestly, I think that's the next step for bringing our sport to honestly the next level, and I think it needs to be capitalized on sooner rather than later before the stars of the sport age out. Also, like when you look at our sport, the stardom of drivers is not how it was 10 years ago. There's fantastically talented drivers, don't get me wrong. Like there's amazing kids that are after coming in that are really, really, really talented and actually better for their age than all of us were at the same age.
Right.
But there's something missing there about media value or how they're finding their fan base or connecting. There's something missing there,
Man, I feel like I could argue either side of that, because I would say,
argue with me. Come on, I'll listen.
Yeah, I can't agree with that because we have such a bigger reach. Like if you were to look solely at the data, I think it's bigger than it's ever been. Like whether that's fan attendance or viewership online or people following on social media, like I would say if you were to add up everybody that's competing in FD now, add up all their social media numbers, compare that to 10 years ago, there's no chance.
So you take away, say, I was arguing that there's 10 superstars in FD.
Right.
Take away their stardom and all of their social media numbers, I guarantee the numbers drop by 70%.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think the same argument could be made 10 years ago.
But no, because I really don't think so.
I don't know.
Because I feel like there's been like drivers that have come in to fill the spots more organically over the 10 years.
I don't know.
Like,
I think what you're seeing is like the lack of traditional publication. That like we don't see magazines anymore. We don't see like that's the one that sticks out to me. That's the biggest difference I think between now and 10 years ago is that magazines have all but died, right? You've got a few left and it doesn't feel as real because you can't hold the photo of that driver. So it doesn't feel as important to us. But to my 10-year-old son, he doesn't give two shits about holding a magazine.
Of course.
He's looking at how many subscribers that guy has or how many views on TikTok he has.
Yep.
And I think comparing the two is difficult, but I don't know. I would think that we have more and bigger stars than we ever have.
Yeah. Well, like I'm saying to you, you're also counting like the Adam LZs that are established, the James Deans, the Chelsea Denofas. But I'm saying to you, all of those are in the aging out pattern of their career, right? All of us are, including myself. I'm 35.
Yeah. But but you could offset that with like a Brandon Sorensen.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could easily, are you just saying that we don't have like the 22 and 23-year-old superstars coming into the sport right now?
Who are coming in that are really hungry to make an established name that will do whatever they can media-wise to push as much content out there to gain as many followers and build an audience. Like, Adam Ellsey's the perfect example. He's 27 or 28. And like he understood the value of controlling the eyeballs, how important it was for business, whether it was finding a pro NFT or selling t-shirts or whatever. He understood the value of the eyeballs and maximized that. What I'm saying is you have fantastically talented drivers in there right now, like amazingly talented kids. But I don't see the hunger in them that, like, I know I feel even I had 10, 15 years ago. Like, I was whatever it took. Like, whatever I have to do every single day to make sure that we're on the grid again next year.
Do you think there's just less of a struggle now, though? That, like, we have access to parts,
I think
we have access to chassis.
Money is harder to find than it's ever been for FD. Because 10 years ago, let me tell you, if you found 100 grand, had a pretty okay program at 100 grand. Now, unless you come in with 250, 300, you're wasting your time. The cars are too expensive to run now.
See, I don't know, man. I don't want to, like, blow up anybody's spot, but I would.
Of course, I won't blow up anyone's spot.
I would say most of the pro spec guys are operating on a budget between 30 to 50,000, right?
Pro spec. So
for 4 rounds.
They're doing half the amount of rounds, which is about a third of the amount of work.
I agree. Which means, given those set of numbers, that's anywhere between 100 to 150,000.
So tell me any of those pro spec guys that's only drift. That is their only income source.
Without family money?
Yeah.
See, here's the hard part, because I know too much. But you could look at like a Ben Hobson or a Connor O'Sullivan, right?
Fantastic Those are drivers, incredibly talented kids. 2
young drivers that all they do is drive, right? Both incredibly talented, both coming up.
I know. I'll tell you, I didn't come for family money. I actually moved over here. Are you telling me
flooring didn't make you a millionaire?
I actually moved over here with $1,168. That's a fact. And my dad actually bought me my one Via. He bought it for $8,000, and I paid him back $4,000 of the $8,000. And he still says it to me every morning on Christmas morning. I'm eating breakfast. You owe me $4,000. And he still says it to me all the time.
You should probably pay him back.
No. It's absolutely an ongoing joke that he's never getting it. But that is it. That is the only cash infusion I ever had, ever off a drifting. So I know I didn't come from money. I can absolutely guarantee that James Dean didn't have money. I know that. Personally know him a very, very long time. Horsberg didn't come from money. Vaughn didn't come from money. Turk didn't come from money. Like, so many guys that have lasted the test of time of FD and have found a way of making a professional drifting career from I will do whatever it takes, no matter what, to actually be on that grid. I don't see that fighting hunger in people anymore.
I think, so here's where I think the division is, now that I've had a minute to think about it a bit more. I think the difference is that we have something like Pro Spec, whereas before you would go from a Pro-Am series, right? Like whatever Pro-Am series you want to pick, or you come from overseas and you go straight into Pro. Because we have Pro Spec now, I just think that those people now live in Pro Spec and they don't live in Pro. And they don't get as much attention and not as many people know their names yet. And I think what we have to work on is fostering from Pro Spec into Pro. Whereas I think every Pro Spec driver should have a Pro mentor. I think every Pro Spec driver should have to work on a Pro team for at least 2 rounds, right?
Yeah.
There are guys that were coming into Pro. There's guys who are coming into Pro Spec have never been to an FD event before.
That's crazy.
I have personally spoken to several drivers who said the first time I've ever been to an FD event was the time I was competing. And I'm like, that's insane. I think you should have to work on one of the teams. I think there should be an official, I think like you should have to pick one driver at least, and you mentor that driver and you teach them the business part. They work on your crew. They understand how to set up a pits. Like shit like that is what we're missing. And I feel like the only reason you guys are good at it now is because everybody sucked at it back then. There was like a couple of guys that came from like big corporate sponsorships that, let's say 7 or 8 years into the event, the first 6 years of FD was just kind of okay, we're going to figure this out. A couple of guys came from other professional racing series who had some understanding of how to set up a pits.
Not really, because Falcon Tire were there from the very, very start. And Falcon Tire Flex, they came in with 4 semi trucks and like instantly gave the place a feel. So everyone had like a vision of, this is where I need to get to, you know?
Yeah. I still think those stories are happening. They're just happening in prospect, and we don't have enough of a lens on them yet. And that's why we don't know. And what I also think is that you don't see them because they're not going to your generation, right? You already said you turn 35 tomorrow. You're an old man. We're both old men, putting that in perspective. Yeah. In comparison to these guys that are coming up, like, how many people knew about Brandon Sorensen before he came into FD? And then you're like, oh shit, who's this kid? Well, there's a whole group of people that knew about Brandon Sorensen well before he ever came into FD.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is I just think maybe we're out of touch.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think we keep a very good finger on the pulse of what's going on. Like we watch, and I feel like I know 90% of things that go on the grid, how they're with. And I don't see the hunger from like myself and Odie and Matt Field and Asbo. We all started at more or less the same time, within like a year of each other. And like, I know those guys personally as good friends. And I know how hard that they're all after working and digging and grinding to be like absolutely whatever it takes.
How much did
I don't see it in the young kids.
How much did your car cost 10 years ago though?
I bought the Viper 001. I have it still for 40 grand.
Okay. And can you say how much your program would have cost 10 years ago? I'm using 10 just as like as an easy number.
What year was that? 2013?
2013.
100 grand?
Right.
100 grand. And I funded I was actually probably a bit more than 100 to be fair. Because my transport, I transported with Achilles and that was 35 grand in transport alone.
Okay.
It's probably more like 130, 140 grand. And I funded a minimum of half of that myself.
What?
And then the rest was off sponsors.
I mean, I don't know. I still say it's happening. I just think it's hard to compare. I mean, everything is significantly more expensive and the cars have to be at such a different level now. That pro spec cars now are pro cars 4 or 5 years ago. That they haven't scaled linearly.
I don't think the pro cars have massively evolved in 4 years. Like obviously they get incrementally better every year, but they're not wildly different than what we drove 4 years ago. Like we're all using the same gearbox or an iteration of it. We're all using the same back end. We're all using the same axles.
Do they still cost the same though as they did 5 years ago?
Well, like I think I pay even less now on my gearboxes now than I paid 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, yeah, but did you strike a better deal?
Of course, yeah. But
yeah,
that's also what I mean. It's like that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm absolutely glad that you said that. It's like
shit.
All these kids have more power now to be able to leverage and be able to build better programs than any of us ever had 10 years ago.
So
because
what are they missing then?
They have the means of capturing eyeballs and monetizing it and stuff, right?
Okay.
And they have a way of actually getting their message out there.
Okay,
whereas 10 years ago, I had to make a sponsorship hard deck proposal and hand it to someone and be like, I really hope he sends me back a letter or an email or whatever, right? No, but that was the reality of it, right?
I know.
Now it's like, now you can have, I know a kid like who has 700,000 followers and they message a company on Instagram.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy fuck, this is a good opportunity. And they instantly have that bridge already built. Because the people only care about how many eyeballs that you're going to put on their product, not what you're doing on the track.
No, it's totally it's a reach number.
All the results and everything, that's all just personal affirmation. That's all that is.
Yeah.
They don't care about any of that. The only thing they care about is how many eyeballs are you able to put on my product.
You could argue the better you do, the more screen time you get.
Of course,
therefore, more reach you get. But I know what you're saying.
Or they could focus on actually going out like and making a viral video for half a day, and they can get 10 times the number that, I don't know, even the FD live stream will get.
Yeah, he's got to jump a Tesla and that's it. You're good.
Well, I know I made a viral video like on our Instagram account a couple of weeks ago, and it got 1 million likes and 23 million impressions, like, you know, which is insane numbers. But like I'm saying, like the possibility of finding more money and being hungry to evolve your program and make it better, it has never been easier for them ever right now. The only thing is, it's a harder pool because there's so many people that are all trying to do it. But I don't think there's very many of the drivers on the grid that are trying to stand out and do a better job.
So what do we? Okay, so let's.
If I had the answer,
don't accept it.
If I had the answer, I would be doing exactly what I'm saying, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this is the problem, like if we've identified the problem, how do we provide a solution?
I think FD needs to help more, honestly, personally. I don't think FD are doing enough to bring in more money and more partners in the series.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think that concerns me, if we're going to be honest, is FD hasn't had a title sponsor on the series for the last 4 years or 5 years. Like, that's concerning for me that the series is not finding that like pot of money that, even though they've shown that they don't actually need that money to operate, that they don't have that extra influx of cash that they're able to invest into like taking a chance on things, you know, actually making the program better and like spending $100,000 on something. And I know it didn't work, but we're not upside down now financially.
I would argue they did that with me, but that's
of
I know
course
they pay me $100,000, but like this obviously this show never
absolutely this is good, like, you know.
Oh, thank you.
But like I would love to see him really trying to push the envelope. Like, I'm a big fan of Supercross.
Okay.
When you go and you watch Supercross, you're like, these guys get it. Like, they absolutely get it. How it's monetized, how it's packaged, how it's branded, how they control all of the riders' merch. Like, it is packaged so well.
That's such a FD is such a different business model, though.
Of course,
where they're allowing,
and I'm not saying
the drivers to do it.
I'm not. That's also good and bad, and that's why I'm on about the franchising of. But
this is like this, like, without like getting like super political. Like, this is the difference between like a libertarian versus like socialism, right?
We joke about that. We joke about that quite a lot around here, to be honest.
But that's the thing is like, okay, like, great difference between Canada and the U.S. Canada believes, hey, we don't think you can control your money enough to stay healthy, so we're going to take extra taxes to make sure that you're healthy.
Yeah.
Is that more or less what you're kind of thinking with FD, where it's like, hey, we're going to control, you're going to sign your licensing rights away to some of your merch, but we're going to help subsidize the cost.
Or else, I know, just make a standard. Like, you can't go and show up in an F1 paddock with a open car trailer and no hospitality, right?
But are you ready to have 16 cars on the grid then?
No, we'll have 32 cars on the grid.
You think if you were to set a standard of like, hey, you have to have a rig of a certain size, do you still think we would stack 32?
No. But like, what I'm saying is there's no making like headway towards having that actually become a thing within the next 10 years. Like, there's no steps that we're trying to like introduce to actually bring the sport to the next level of what it's able to be. Personally, I actually think it'd be a way better show with only 16 cars. Like currently, right now, I think it would be a way better show with 16 cars.
That's an interesting thought.
I think your possibility of actually involving manufacturers and stuff, they'd be way more interested in getting in if they knew there was a slot there and they know that they're not going to go off and spend $1 million on a program and send it out there and a 30-year-old Nissan kicks his button outside the trailer. Because that's not good marketing for any company.
It's a very interesting thought. I've never had anybody bring this up to me, so that's why I'm like incredibly intrigued.
The thing like we all have to understand is like, what are we doing? Like every team is essentially a marketing company, right?
Right.
That is what you do. You're not a race team, you're a marketing company.
Yeah, that happens to race.
Yeah, you are there marketing someone's product so they can sell more product, so they're able to give you more money next year, and you're able to evolve and grow and grow and grow.
Correct.
Or are we a bunch of hobbyist racers that all want to go do SACA and drive around cones? What are we? Let's establish what we are and let's build towards that.
All right. It's interesting. I honestly have never thought about FD in that way, as even though like as somebody who is a pretty big F1 fan, and that is obviously how they operate, is exactly what you're saying to some extent.
I love FD, and I think honestly FD do their on-site activation and everything way better than Hypercross or GRC ever done, or World Rallycross, or even WRC. I think FD it would honestly better. I just wish like there was a plan that like, hey, in 5 years' time, this is what that's our target of where we want to be. 10 years' time, this is where we want to go. How do we build towards that and have all the teams collectively helping each other?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there is a plan or there's not. I literally have no idea. I think at the end of the day, FD wants to grow. It has to grow. There is no way around it. Like, in order for the sport to grow, the pinnacle of that sport in North America and arguably the world has to continue to grow. How it gets there, I'm not sure. I really don't. That's why I'm not their financial advisor or their
of course,
their president. But I appreciate your thoughts on it. I think it's really interesting, and it gives me and probably everybody else listening some pause and consideration into it. Because it's just a different approach to what they're going for now. Yeah, but I did ask you what you would do given the keys, and this is it.
I would do a lot of things. Like I think it's easy to sit on the outside and say, if I ran this, I would do it better, right? It's like what everyone says about Trump or Biden. You're like, if I was in there, I'd do this. Well, you don't really know what you're dealing with like until you're inside the four walls, right? And I do want to say that like I think they do a fantastic job at what they do. I just like would like to feel like as teams and owner operators and stuff, we're not as much in the dark about where are we going to be in 10 years time. Because 10 years ago, I would have thought that the series would be in a much different spot now than what it is in right now. And I also know we dealt with any different things like COVID along the way. And actually, like, I'm impressed that they were able to keep it all alive and not go under during those times. So I absolutely appreciate that. But like, having the teams and everyone on the same page of where we're all trying to go towards would be great. Or are we all going to keep trying to cut each other's out over a tire sponsor for evermore?
That's a solid way of looking at it. Right. I don't know. I mean, the hard part for me is like, I've only been on the inside of this really this year, right? Yep. I've been involved with teams previously. I've been around the pits for years, but like, this is my first year of like truly being entrenched in everything that's going on. So for me, it feels very transparent, but I also this is where I'm setting the bar, right? Of this much transparency. Whereas I guess you're looking at it like, okay, here's the transparency we had 10 years ago, and I want it to be different. I want it to be more. I just want to know something that they haven't told me yet.
Yeah, and like, I'm not on it because I know I only want it as a personal benefit. Like, I love the sport. I'm after giving,
of course,
my whole life for it. So I would like to know that we were part of building something at a ground zero, all the way into hopefully an amazing championship that's out to last for 50 or 60 years, like, you know.
Yeah.
It would definitely make the journey feel like it was worth it. Like, you know, that you actually gave up a portion of your life and you helped actually build an amazing thing, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think it depends on who you talk to. You look at like a Von Gittin who's built an empire on the back of Formula Drift. I mean, that's the pinnacle that I think a lot of guys are aiming for. But I think what you're saying is you want to see everybody at that point where
I want to see everybody. I want to see that Jeff Jones is able to do that. Like, I want to be able to see Kyle Moen. I want to see Jonathan Hurst all be able to be like professional drift drivers, having the staff that actually runs their program and
they just drive.
Exactly, because they're all fantastic drivers, amazing personalities, and everyone's after putting the bricks on the wall to actually build what we have already. I'm not concerned at all about myself and that. Like I have other things I'm doing that like I'm passionate about now as well. I would just love to know like what's the plan and the roadmap, and how do we have everyone work together towards actually building that, and not feel like everyone is hiding over a tire sponsor when it becomes HEMA time every year. Like, well, why is it even a thing? Why is it even a thing?
That's fair. I mean, I would argue and say that you should have your tire sponsor already finished by SEMA. But hey, this last year was super weird because, dude, no one had budgets until the end of the year. I know what you're saying.
It's like I want everyone to be pulling on the same rope, basically, that we're all trying to achieve greatness together and not arguing over $10.
No, that's fair. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this, because I think you've shined a light on some interesting stuff, and this is probably I wouldn't say the most interesting conversation I've had, but the one that's made
not
me
the
think
most interesting. Jesus.
I mean, I don't know, dude. It's been good. There's been conversations that have come out of this I never thought I would have, like Dylan Hughes talking about Huddy racing. I don't know if you listened to any of these shows.
I haven't listened to any of it yet.
Wow, like, thanks. Appreciate that. Go listen to that one, because it's like, holy shit. He just doesn't hold anything back.
Yeah, like the one thing I've learned in the last while is you can't unsay things on the internet.
This is true.
Can't unsay things. And I've had my couple of legal accusations over the last couple of months about stuff online, so I'm a little bit more coy about what I really want to say about things sometimes. I think I was very open this time around, though.
I think so. I have a lot of questions about that, but we don't talk about that here. Cool.
I'm sure a lot of people do.
I'm sure. Well, that's for the next one.
Not everything needs to be aired in public, though, right?
That's fair. Cool. Anything you want to plug, say? I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun, and I have a lot of shit to think about.
No, I actually enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, obviously, I'm not really into like fucking cameras and stuff like that, but this has been fun. It's been enjoyable. It's also, I like getting other people's opinion on FD. I think FD are fantastic at what they do, and I love everyone. Everyone that works there has actually become like friends now. You know, they've all become very, very close, and I can talk openly with them as well. Like, we have them come by the shop every now and then, and I'll tell them exactly the way I feel. But no, it's good. I think it's good that we're all open book. I just like really want us to build something successful that we're all out to be proud of when we're all old men and I'm at the corner of a bar somewhere. Like, we helped to build that. You know? Yeah.
No, that's good. I think that's an awesome way to wrap it up as well. I really appreciate your time on this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for everybody for listening and watching. If you haven't checked it out yet, please go check out Dean's YouTube channel. I'll make sure to put a link down in the description, because those videos, go check the break-in one. I can't remember what the title of the videos, but
that's pretty good.
Scene. The stair scene killed me. So.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks again, everybody, for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.